A question came to mind the other day. I pondered on it, and I guess it's a sensitive question. Uh, I'm a black man, and this question pertains to black people. And that question is, why should anyone care about how you're discriminated against, or about racism, or about like this conversation? We need to have a nationwide racial conversation. Like, why should people care? And that's a real question. I know for a fact that black people aren't the only people who are discriminated against. We'll start off with that. There's a lot of people who are discriminated against. There's overweight people. Every race is discriminated against depending on wherever they are. If you have a person who's Chinese and he lives in a black neighborhood, he's discriminated against. I heard stories about Jeremy Lin being discriminated against. It's just that there's a culture within the black community where we feel entitled to a certain amount of attention. And I ask, like, why? Like, where did that come from? And when I ponder on the mainstream media, I realize that for some time we've been given a lot of attention. It's almost like we were being set up. We were given attention to the point where we're almost like minstrels. Like, they expect us. It's like they fed us. They kept feeding us like a turkey for Thanksgiving, and they fed us with so many things that revolve around shining the light on us, whether it be negative or positive. And it was mostly negative, to be honest with you. I remember at one time when a black man would commit a crime, you would know a black man committed a crime because they would say a black man committed a crime. When a white man committed a crime, they would just say a man. I remember that. But regardless, it was total attention. Black people were always receiving so much attention. Back in the days, black people, I remember this too. Black people didn't really participate in the hoorah. They wasn't into all the nonsense or the drama. I remember the talk shows back in the days. I remember when Phil Donahue and Phil Donahue. What's that other when talk shows started getting raunchy? I think it was like the Richard Bay show, and it was what other show was out there? Jerry Springer. That's when black people started changing. Before then, black people would look at white people and they would be like, "Look at them white people, they crazy." That's when the father was still in charge. That's all they would say. They would goof on white people because white people were exposing themselves to like publicly on shows and acting up, and they would be laughing at them. And I'm not saying it's not a racial thing. I mean, that back in the days, that's when racial harmony was improving because they had shows like the Jeffersons. They had other shows where it would be like cop duos or Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. Like they had all these interracial duos and racial harmony was improving so much back then. But then they created something to where black people feel entitled to a certain amount of attention, and they'll fight for attention. They'll do clowny stuff for attention. They'll like all kinds of stuff, like attention hogs. YouTube, they created these things so that people can cultivate this thing for attention where they can get it. But at the same time, there's so many other people that are discriminated against, aren't isn't there? I would say that albino people are discriminated against, right? I would say little people are discriminated against. What happens a year from now? Little people, like we see, and this isn't to be funny, but like imagine some little person or midget, whatever we call them, like a Al Sharpton kind of figure. And he's like preaching and he's talking about for all these years we discriminated against small people. I have to get a hanger and bend it and a wire hanger to turn the light switch on and off, and I have to have a special thing, on my leg so that I could drive a vehicle. It's you didn't make cars our size. Do you realize what I'm saying? They can demonize everything, and they can cancel culture from that point on if society actually falls for these rules. They could say all those people who weren't concerned with little people. They make up a name, like almost like a racist. They make up a new name, just like even with overweight people, fat phobia, and then they start this whole propaganda and cancel culture for people who didn't acknowledge this. This is what I'm trying to say. It's so simple, and I'm trying to explain it in a simple way, but people are getting played. Marxists are playing people. Like it's pitiful, man. Marxists are playing people. Their ideologies they push. I always say that they're feminizing black men. As soon as black men start saying things like "it's not fair," you're on the level. You're placing yourself on the level of a child. You're below a man. It's not fair. Men don't live by it's not fair. Women live by it's not fair. Children live by it's not fair. Men can't live by it's not fair. Men, since the beginning of time, beginning of civilization, yeah, we took over land. We fought for land, we colonized and all that, including blacks. If you want to really get into history, look up Europe and black people in Europe, the year I believe 7 or even like 675 to like the 1400s. There were plenty of black kings and rulers in Europe. And black people, again, they used to say back in the days, you want to hide something from black people, you put it in a book. And it's so true. With Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever, it's so much information. People don't have an excuse. But I don't comment much. I mean, I do comment on the women, but I don't comment in terms of trying to be critical of women. They are kind of, they're subjects to this thing. I don't like to say the word victim, but they're subjects. So, if anything, we have to help our sisters. We got to shake them out of their delusion. They're kind of waiting for us. And it's funny because it's almost like saving somebody from a fire, and when you pull them out, as they pulling them out, they're beating on your chest. But that's what's happening right now. A lot of women, there's a gender war in the black community. A lot of black women hate black men. A lot of black men hate black women. And we got to kind of get over that because they're playing us for fools. That's the main thing. I knew a girl once when I was younger. She was, I think she was like 14. The girl was like 6'2". She confided in me one day, and she told me that she goes to bed and she cries every night. People have been teasing her. They laugh at her because she's so tall. I could tell somebody black that, and they'll be like, well, she ain't go through the struggle, or she ain't go through slavery, or, that sort of thing, which, that's all propaganda. I personally, I can't claim a bead of sweat from a slave, because I don't know suffering. I don't know that suffering, and I have no idea what it's like. But imagine a person who pretends to know. Imagine a person who looks for benefits off of the blood and sweat and tears of someone else who really suffered. You people didn't suffer. As a matter of fact, the definition of poverty is political now. It's not even real. These people aren't impoverished. Poor in America? People aren't starving here. People don't rob and steal because they don't eat. It's a ruse, man. It's a big ruse, and a lot of people fall for it, particularly in our community. It's funny how people bring up to me, and then this is just an example of how feminized men are in the way they think. They talk about how Christopher Columbus came to Turtle Island, and the Indians were there, or the Native Americans, and they're like, oh, they went and gave him smallpox, which is a lie, and they, these people were trying to help them, and then the white man beat them up, and they brutalized them, and blah, blah. That's such a lie. I mean, you fall. These people fall totally for the propaganda. So you mean to tell me that those peaceful Indians sat on that land all that time, and other tribes didn't try to take the land, or they took the land from another tribe? And I tell people that that soil is blood soaked. You that foolish? And so you think that when Columbus came, that was the first time they fought for that land. They were probably fighting people that were in similar tribes to their own and killing them. In Africa, you think that people did? You think that Africans back in the day didn't want to rule the world too? They just didn't have the means. There are higher orders that are working and that are in place, I believe. So you can't just do what you want or just say, oh, man wanted to do this and it just turned out the way he wanted it to go. There's higher orders to things. God is in control, of these things. So when it comes to a person perceiving me as X, Y, Z at this state and time, why was that circumstance? Why do you think the governing circumstance was a white man rather than it being a higher rule or destiny for me to be in my position at this very time in this very place? And the true test is for me as a person to deal with the hardship and whether my heart is truly moved by it or whether I become a better person from it. You see how they get men to think on a low level? They think externally, so they see it with their eyes and they say, this is what it is. It's like the story about the blind man and the elephant. He's blind all of his life. He never knew what an elephant was. So they take him near one and they tell him to grab on it. And he grabs his leg or his trunk and he says, wow, this is an elephant. And in his mind, he's imagining like a tree trunk. But he doesn't know what an elephant is. And that's what a lot of people do. That's what a lot of people think. I'm sorry, a lot of liberals. That's how Marxist Luciferians get you guys to think like that. Very closed-minded. You don't ask questions on top of questions. You just, this is what it is. And you come to that conclusion and you go with it because it goes with your notions of it's not fair. It's not fair as an ideology. It's not fair. It's not fair. Columbus is a murderer. He pillages and burns. Like African war, when they were colonizing or when they were trying to take over other countries or territories, they didn't do the same thing. No, they were morally better. It's like sickening. It's like terrible, man, the way you guys think. How did you guys come to how did black men come to think so like surface level? We used to be philosophers, man. With philosophy, there are higher meanings to everything. I could hold an apple up to you and tell you, you say, oh, it's an apple, you just eat it. And I say, no, this is a universe. There's bacteria living on this thing. It's a world, and then it's a universe, and then it's a cosmic entity. Like, they go deeper than what's on the surface. Women are allowed to expand on the surface. They're allowed to look at something and say, this is what it is. When coronavirus came, for example, I knew a lot of women that were afraid. They were scared, and they double mask it and all that. They like the propaganda they use. They count on women to go into hysterics. But you as a man, you can think on that level, and that's going to be a 1 or 2 dimensional thinker. Or if you're a 3 or 4 dimensional thinker, I would say 4, which is more even spiritual or metaphysical. You would say that the day that I'm going to die, it's already etched in stone in another space. The very day and how I'm going to die is already written out. So if it happened to be from coronavirus, as long as I'm in alignment with the laws or whatever, the mandates, as long as I'm doing that and I'm not sitting here worrying about dying. You see, because if you're a worrier, how are you supposed to comfort your woman if you think just like her? All these men that get the jab and they got a lot of black men. I'm telling you, they changed our essence. They changed the mechanics of thought. So if your process of thought is just like hers, what do you have to bring to her? You're supposed to calm her, but you're just as emotional as she is. You're just as worried as she is. I remember when I was younger, men would sleep anywhere, fall asleep anywhere. You sit a man in a chair to have a party, and he just sit there for he be knocked out. A woman, on the other hand, a lot of women suffer from insomnia. A lot of women, because they have anxiety. If whether it's what you would call a blessing or tribulation, she could sit up all night. You can win the lottery, and she'll be so excited she can't sleep, and or something bad could happen. You're gonna get evicted tomorrow, and she can't sleep. Sweetie, are you up? The men back in the days, I don't know about today, but back in the days, men would sleep through anything, and that just meant that men naturally take things lightly, a little bit more lightly than women do. But what happened to men today? Why should anybody care? Why should anybody care? Anybody care about the again, like Mexicans or Chinese people who live in black neighborhoods who get picked on, stomped out? Anybody care about albinos? Anybody care about, like, that girl I mentioned, 6'2", cries every night? It's so many different kinds of people, depending on their environment, who are suffering. Why must we have a racial conversation? You see how crazy that is? Why must people look at your woes? What gives you the privilege? Isn't that privilege? Why are you entitled to it? Why? Because people that kind of resemble you once were slaves. If you begin to go back into history, everybody's connected to slavery and everybody was enslaved. But because you're in closer proximity to slavery, you feel like you see how ridiculous that is? How did they get black men to think like this? Again, I don't really include the women, because the world's not going to change based on the actions of women. It's going to change based on the actions of men. And I know that's controversial and crazy. I shoot from the hip. I may make disclaimers now, but I'm definitely going to stop. I just do it until my content, people know my intentions here, because to make the disclaimer is, I understand watching out for people's feelings and all, but the truth comes first. But if you have to make a disclaimer, the enemy wants you to make a disclaimer. They want you to, because when you just pretty much generalize and you generally say something, you pretty much expedite the issue. You kind of bring it to the fore and you quickly resolve it like that. But when you got to sit there and explain, look, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean it like that. Look, most women do. Like, back in the days, they used to have, like, that saying, like if it doesn't stick, let it, gosh, what was it saying? Anyway, just, man, if it doesn't pertain to you, be an adult. Just let it go. Like, why are you getting offended? But at the same time, the elite created that. They created the culture of offense. And that's what I mean. The black community, everything they create, we fall for it. Every single thing. That's why they love us. That's why they're trying to recreate our culture into other cultures. So, where black women think that they're strong, due to their sass, due to them being defiant, due to them being, I'm independent, which means I can live independently without a man. And they're proud of it. 20% of black women get married. They're proud of it. They're shooting themselves in the foot. That's what the Luciferian left does. They make people protect the system that destroys them. I was on Facebook and I was talking to a friend from high school, and I was talking to him about hip-hop, how it destroys the community. And he's like, no, it doesn't. And he's, kind of trying to bring up Talib Kweli and Mos Def, these conscious rappers. Do they control the culture? Like, people don't even know who they are. A lot of people don't know who they are. So while you're trying to be right or make a point, oh, no, it doesn't, we could be expediting or working on an issue that's destroying a community, but you want to talk about something that doesn't have an effect because nobody really listens to them. They're not platinum artists or anything. But you want to talk about, it's almost like your house is on fire. It's an inferno, right? Or your kitchen and your living room curtains caught to fire. And you got the extinguisher, you don't know where to go. And then you run into the bathroom and your shower curtain, it's a vinyl shower curtain on fire. And it's porcelain and tiles. And you trying to put the fire out on a vinyl shower curtain. You get what I'm saying? And guess what? Who likes that you do that? The Luciferian left. That's exactly what they want you to do. They want you to focus on things that don't matter because they're not about substance. They're about symbolism. That's why they'll put up, let's put Biggie Smalls' name on the street, whatever, because they're not interested in solving problems. Yo, black men just gotta wake up. I'm telling you, y'all, you're so busy protecting their cause, and I hope I can make things clear when it comes to that. I hope I can present evidence and examples as to why I think the way I do, which maybe I'm wrong. You know, why should anyone care? You men can't be victims. Men can't be victims. No matter how much you cry and whine, the only thing that's happening is people are holding disdain for you. They're holding something that's going to make them look like they're racist. Because nobody likes a man sitting around whining about it's not fair. No one. Not even other black men. I don't care where you're from, South America, Europe, Australia, like wherever. They're looking at you whining across the planet. African men, they talk about y'all too. American black men. They find people like me and they talk to me and they be like, oh, you're different. Like, you're a hard worker. I have a lot of friends that aren't from here. But the typical black man, I mean, meaning I go to the barbershop and talk to those black guys. It's like they're talking all this ignorance. And I'm literally like this. Like, I have to literally calm myself to not get into the conversation. I'll just let them spew their emotional whatever, and I feel bad too because you know the single motherhood thing and a lot of men being raised without masculine energy around them. I'm blessed. I have my dad. My dad wasn't macho or anything, and he was, my mother had more masculine energy in terms of order perhaps than he did, but that unit still makes a difference. It really does. But I go back to, why should anyone care? You ever heard a black person say, they don't even care about us? They'll be talking about the government. They don't even care about us. Or somebody rich, right? From your neighborhood, they become a R&B star or a football player or something. And then they have this mentality that you owe them something. Where does that come from? How is that masculine? That's not masculine, that's feminine. That's what I told you. A lot of things in the black community, black men they're very feminized, and they continue to feminize black men. And I'm gonna one day talk about that in a bit more detail, because they don't see it. You thought the NFL socks and sneakers being pink was about breast cancer. They really slip things in on you. You don't have no idea. Let's attack the most macho dudes playing sports, or they'll slip out Allen Iverson. They'll start him having long hair and all that, and then the women are cutting their hair off. You guys are gonna wake up. Again, I was told, hey, you think too deeply. You need to chill out and da-da-da. No, you don't think enough. You don't think deep enough at all. Protectors think deeply. Protectors have foresight. Protectors are 3-4 dimensional thinkers and up. You're not a protector anymore. You care to be liked by people. That's going to be a problem for the culture. But that's my limited perspective and understanding. What's yours? Please please share the video if you did like it. I only have a few subscribers now, but hopefully it's going to pick up. Our show's coming out. Hopefully it'll be next month or this month even. Who's Woke? And yeah, we want to get that going. I'm very excited about this project. But until then, I'm signing off. Peace.